I think that party games are underappreciated. While the party game genre is saturated with a lot of soulless, cash grab games that were easy to develop and take advantage of a large casual market, I do believe that there are developers out there who are taking the party game genre and innovating within it, and I honestly think that that goes underappreciated. Well, welcome to Mark's Rec Room, where I will be discussing party games and how they create a fun and memorable experience for everybody. To start this series off, I want to take a detailed look at each Mario Party game. Mario Party is a mainstay in the party game genre, so I think that this series is the perfect place to start. Who knows, we may even take a look at games that attempted to remix or straight up rip off the Mario Party formula. But to start things off, I want to take a look at Mario Party 1, the hand-melting inaugural entry to this expansive series of games. Mario Party 1 was released on the Nintendo 64 in 1998 to a collective groan from critics. Critics definitely didn't hold back on this game, often calling it tedious and random. Despite this, it still sold well and spawned a huge spin-off series. Mario Party was the first of its kind in a lot of ways, taking advantage of the video game medium to create a unique party game experience, one that could not be replicated in a typical board game. The dynamic maps and unique minigames were something that the world never really saw until this game came around. So, what made Mario Party a fun, memorable multiplayer experience? In my opinion, there are a few defining characteristics of what makes Mario Party fun. At its core, Mario Party is at its best when all players are consistently making meaningful choices. When players need to choose how to spend their coins, use their items, win the minigames, and where to go next on the board, each and every one of these choices have consequences on not just yourself, but your opponents as well. So, to make these choices meaningful, the boards need to provide players with the agency to make these decisions. The minigames need to be varied and provide opportunities for players to show their skills, and there need to be tools at the player's disposal to help them gain an upper hand, whether that is a space on the board or an item in their pocket. And yes, luck does play a heavy role in these games, but I honestly think that factoring in probability and luck into your strategy is what keeps Mario Party fresh, to an extent. So, does Mario Party 1 deliver a party game experience that delivers on these core principles? In Mario Party 1, each of the boards contains the following spaces. Blue and red spaces give and take 3 coins respectively, happening spaces cause a board event to occur. There are single-player minigame spaces where the player will play a single-player minigame for coins. We'll talk more about this one later. Mushroom spaces force the player to roll a mushroom dice and either get to roll again or lose a turn. There's also chance time, where stars and coins can be swapped from player to player with a dice roll. After the star is bought and moves, a chance time space is put in its place, which is a neat touch, but can definitely get out of hand on 50-turn games. Then there's Bowser spaces. Bowser spaces can cause a variety of events to occur for players to lose coins, whether through a minigame, a Bowser version of chance time, or through wealth redistribution. Since this is the first game in the series, I'll let the small number of space types slide, but that doesn't mean that I don't have things to say about them. Chance time is cool since you actually have a bit of input on what happens here, since the dice start off slower and then ramp up in speed, so in dire situations it can actually be a viable strategy. However, the mushroom spaces don't really do it for me. If you hit the mushroom, you get to roll again, which is fine, but if you get the poison mushroom, you lose a turn, which is insanely punishing for just landing on the space. If the poison mushroom limited your next dice roll to 1 through 5, that would probably have been fine, but as it stands, I just don't think that this mechanic adds much strategy and punishes you way too harshly, especially on boards like Mario's Rainbow Castle and Peach's Birthday Cake, where dice rolls are especially crucial. There are a couple of other board mechanics outside of spaces. Koopa is at the start of every map, and passing him is like passing Go in Monopoly, granting player 10 coins unless if you are in the last 5 turns or if you're the 10th person to pass him, in which case he'll grant 20. There's also Boo, who will steal coins from another player or will steal a star if you give him 50 coins. Boo's a phenomenal mechanic because this adds a layer of strategy and decision making. Do you chase after a star and pay a lower price, or do you steal a star with Boo for the price of more than 2 stars, but your net swing is 2 since you gain a star and your opponent loses 1. Finally, Mario Party 1 also introduces bonus stars that players can earn at the end of the game. These stars are the Game Star for whoever who wins the most coins in minigames, the Coin Star for whoever had the most coins in their possession at any given point in the game, and the Happening Star for the player who landed on the most happening spaces. I like bonus stars because they add a layer of strategy that players can keep in the back of their minds to continue to work towards throughout the game. So even if a happening space might not provide the optimal outcome, players can still choose to land on one if they have a shot at a free star at the end of the game. The Minigame Star and Coin Star also reward skilled players who are better at minigames, which I like a lot. All of these board mechanics help to keep things interesting and provide players with choices to make, even though this initial selection is a bit minimal. So, let's talk about the boards themselves. The 8 boards featured in Mario Party 1 are Mario's Rainbow Castle, DK's Jungle Adventure, Peach's Birthday Cake, Yoshi's Tropical Island, Wario's Battle Canyon, Luigi's Engine Room, Bowser's Magma Mountain, and Eternal Star. Each of these boards is distinct from the others, both aesthetically and in their layout. The board designs are absolutely crucial to creating a fun experience for everyone, so I'm going to discuss each of the boards in detail from worst to best. Wario's Battle Canyon is my least favorite board in Mario Party 1. So this board is what I like to call an island loop board, where there are 5 looping islands that you can only travel between when you enter these cannons. As I'm sure you'll come to figure out as the series continues, I am not the biggest fan of island loop boards. More often than not, players make fewer decisions about their placement on the board, and this instead places a heavier emphasis on high dice rolls and luck. Wario's Battle Canyon is a prime example of this problem, since you can only travel between these islands through the cannons. Once you enter the cannon, this cursor will rapidly move across the spaces on the next island, and when you press A, you will land on that space. The cursors do move in a predetermined pattern, but it's not one that's very easily recognized so that players can strategize and plan out where they'll land. You'll only be able to recognize the pattern if you played this board a lot, which really is not ideal for players who are new to Mario Party. The star will move after it has been purchased, and you can change where the cannons aim by landing on a happening space. Bowser also has his own island in the center, which you can visit by paying this fly guy, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me unless if the star happens to spawn here. Bowser will take some money from you and blast you to a random location. You can also pay Fly Guy to bring someone to his location, which is just hilarious. But honestly, this board is garbage. You make very few decisions about where you go, you can't really strategize much at all, and you just have to hope for high rolls. The whole board is really bland visually too, which makes for one of the weakest boards in the series. Bowser's Magma Mountain is another terrible board. This board is completely linear, but the star moves after each purchase, which doesn't really make much sense to me. If the star spawns behind you, well, that sucks because there's only one way around the board and you have to go all the way around to even have a fighting chance. There are shortcuts here though, where you can pay 10 coins to spin this roulette and take the shortcut. The roulette is kind of easy, but I do like this mechanic that rewards players who can save up coins to make it through to the end of the board faster. There's even one towards the end of the map that lets you skip the final junction, which is cool. However, this final junction sucks. Unless if you take the previously mentioned shortcut, you have to go through this junction and roll the roulette for free. If you win, you go to Boo and can steal something. However, if you lose, you go to Bowser, where he will either steal coins or a star from you. Having Bowser steal coins from you is fine, but if Bowser's able to just take a purchase star out of the economy, I think that is way too harsh and is bad on any board. It's fine for players to lose stars to other players since they can always go and fight for that star back, but straight up taking a purchase star out of the game shouldn't be allowed. You'll hear me reiterate this more and more as the series continues. The happening spaces on this board turn all the blue spaces into red spaces for 2 turns, which is brutal and I like it. However, landing on another happening space should flip this back in my personal opinion. Overall, this board doesn't offer much player choice outside of the shortcuts, and changing the star space on a linear board just doesn't make any sense to me. I'm not a fan. Peach's Birthday Cake is another linear board that I am not a fan of. Thankfully, the star stays in the same spot on this board, so the star spawning behind you on a linear board isn't an issue on this one. However, Peach's Birthday Cake also places a really heavy emphasis on your dice rolls rather than strategy, and honestly, this makes this board incredibly boring. The only real branching path on this board is Goomba's Flower Lottery, which is a luck-based event. This Goomba has 4 seeds available for players to pick from. 3 of these 4 seeds will sprout into a Toad flower, which means that you get to go down the normal path and visit Toad to purchase a star. One of these seeds contains a Bowser flower, which will take you on this little loop to visit Bowser, where he will take 20 coins from you. After a seed is planted, that seed is taken out of the rotation, so the first person to get to the lottery has a 25% chance to visit Bowser, while the second and third person have a 33% and a 50% chance respectively. If all 3 of them win, then the 4th person has to go to Bowser. However, if the Bowser seed gets planted, then the next few people are completely safe until the seeds reset. That's fine and all, but the worst part is that once you exit the Bowser loop, you have to do the flower lottery again, which has another chance of sending you back into the loop, trapping you in an infinite. In fighting games, an infinite is a combo that can trap a player's opponent perfectly to the point where they cannot escape until the combo combo executor either messes up an input or the opponent dies. In Mario Party, however, this concept is similar, except the board is trapping you into a situation that you cannot roll out of. If a board can trap a player in a loop that they cannot escape by naturally rolling, that is an infinite. Infinites are arguably some of the worst offenders in Mario Party board design. They absolutely kill the fun and are way too punishing for something that can happen randomly. So Peach's Birthday Cake does have an infinite, and even though this one doesn't have super overwhelming odds to keep you trapped, it still sucks. The happening spaces here allow you to pay 30 coins to plant a piranha plant on that space, which will steal a star from a player if they land on it. I like this, and even though the price is a bit high for somewhat low odds that someone lands on your space, it provides an opportunity for players to strategize with their money and make decisions, even if the board itself is really boring and places way too much emphasis on your dice rolls. Mario's Rainbow Castle is the best linear board in Mario Party 1, but that doesn't mean that it's a good board. The star is also in a fixed spot on this board, but the neat mechanic here is that the star space can either be held by Toad or Bowser. If you reach the end and Toad is in the star space, you can buy a star from him. However, every time somebody buys a star from Toad, it swaps to Bowser. If you reach the end when Bowser's in control, he'll charge you 40 coins for a star, which is worthless. Landing on happening spaces will rotate the tower, which I like. My biggest problem with this board is that, again, you are offered next to no agency in how well you perform in this board since it's linear and places heavy emphasis on your dice rolls. You can slightly offset this at these junctions, but they're really just an illusion of choice since they're longer or shorter detours that will still put you on the same path. This is one of the more interesting boards from a style and aesthetic perspective though. This board is just boring to me, but it's not the worst board that Mario Party 1 has to offer. DK's Jungle Adventure is a very standard, normal board. This is what I like to call a tied island board, or a board of two islands connected by bridges or other narrow pathways. This board has a couple of gimmicks that I like. These thwomps will block off one path on a junction, and if you want to take the route that they're standing in front of, you have to pay them 10 coins. After somebody takes the route that they aren't in front of, they'll move to block that route. There are also these strange roadblocks that will prevent you from crossing if you have less than 20 coins, which offers some great opportunities to make fun of your friends for not having any money. Other than those somewhat unique mechanics, this board is relatively forgettable. The star space changes after somebody purchases a star, but this board is honestly just one giant loop, so you will likely find yourself to be on the path to the star in one way or another. The happening spaces chase any players in the boulder's path all the way back to the start of the board, even if you landed on a happening space that isn't in the way of the boulder. I feel like these happening spaces get hit way too often, but I don't dislike the concept at its core. I like this board from an aesthetic sense, but otherwise it's not too bad. Just kind of boring. Luigi's Engine Room is alright. The central mechanic here is that there are these blue and red doors that alternate every turn. When they're up, you can't move past them, but you can also change the doors by either landing on a happening space or by paying 20 coins to this machine. The doors will change a lot, so planning routes can be kind of difficult, but I like this board because it allows players to make a variety of decisions regarding what route they take and whether they're going to change the doors. However, this board is a little weird. There's a loop in the top right, and the star can spawn here where you have to hit a happening space to get to it. You'll also pass Boo a lot since all pipes lead to this one at the start of the board. In my opinion, Boo should generally be out of the way so that you make a conscious choice to go to Boo and steal stuff, rather than just by putting him on the route that everyone takes. Luigi's Engine Room is a mixed bag, but it's definitely one of the better boards that Mario Party 1 has to offer. Eternal Star is definitely the most unique board here. Instead of just purchasing stars and there only being one star space, there are 7 baby Bowsers with 7 stars on the board at once. Once you get to one, you'll pay 20 coins and then have to face a baby Bowser in a roll-off where you try to roll higher than them. If you win, you get the star. If you lose a star. However, you likely won't lose too frequently because baby Bowsers will allow you to roll a dice block with only 8, 9, and 10, greatly improving your odds, which almost makes me question why you would even make us roll off to begin with. Once all stars are collected from all 7 baby Bowsers, 7 new ones appear. This is unique because it allows players to be able to make their own route and separate from the others. However, I do feel like it devalues stars a little too much to have this many baby Bowsers on the board at once. There's almost no reason to steal stars with Boo, since you're almost always going to be close to a baby Bowser. However, this does make chance time more impactful since everyone has more to lose, which is always tense and fun. The other unique part about Eternal Star is these teleporters. teleporters. So these teleporters will take you across the map to another teleporter, and they will always take you to the same teleporter in a predetermined pattern. However, the pattern is decided at random for each time you play this board. So this makes this board more fun to return to since the teleporters will behave differently each time, without being so random that you can't predict or strategize where you'll end up. The biggest problem that I have with this board is that Baby Bowser and Bowser both steal stars from players, which I really don't think is fair. It would be better if Baby Bowser would take a star from you and then the next person to win against that Baby Bowser would receive 2 stars, but unfortunately there are way too many opportunities to lose a star on this board that really prevent it from being a good time. Yoshi's Tropical Island is my favorite board in Mario Party 1. Yoshi's Tropical Island is a tied island board without a ton of decision options, but it actually leans into this mechanic pretty well. You see, on each island there's a fixed star spot and they are held by Bowser and Toad. Toad sells you a star while Bowser takes 30 coins from you, and they don't move once a star is purchased. The only way to get Toad and Bowser to swap islands is by hitting a happening space, which I think is great. There are only 2 junctions on this board, and they are at these bridges. Here, these thwomps will require you to pay at least 1 coin more than the previous person who just passed. I like this mechanic a lot because it gives more value to coins and allows players to strategize about which island they want to be on and when they want to increase the toll. My only problems with this board are that there are only 2 junctions and that these bridges are one-way, meaning if you pass the thwomp toll, you have to go at least 29 spaces on the left island and 26 spaces on the right island before you can make that decision again. So there's a fair amount of luck at play here when it comes to other players landing on the happening spaces. However, I still think that this is the best board in Mario Party 1, and I also like its aesthetic as well. The boards in Mario Party 1 are pretty rough. A fair amount of them are very linear with very little agency, and a lot of them are very cramped and feel very punishing and random. I appreciate that there are 8 boards here, but unfortunately I can really only stomach 2 of them before I get really bored. Mario Party 1 is the first of its kind, so I do think that it deserves to be cut some slack for its lacking boards, but unfortunately they rely way too heavily on luck and rolling high. I do appreciate that all of these boards have central gimmicks that are unique and make the board distinct from the others. Sadly, Mario Party 1's board gameplay doesn't allow for much strategy or choice, and this leads to the board gameplay feeling like a bit of a drag. However, board gameplay is only one part of the game, so let's talk about the mini-games. So the way that I'm going to evaluate the minigames for each Mario Party game is through what I'm calling opinionated math. I'm going to give every minigame in each Mario Party game a rating from 1 to 10, and then I'll figure out the mean, the median, and the mode for each game and see how they stack up against each other in terms of quality. A couple of quick things. This list is only going over the minigames that you encounter during normal board play, so no story minigames and no extra minigames, just because I want to review these games in a multiplayer party setting specifically. I also recognize that this system will judge games like Mario Party 1 harsher, since it only has 49 minigames in comparison to a game like Mario Party 5, which has 74. And this is for a couple of reasons. Firstly, bad minigames stick out much more during a typical playthrough if there are fewer good minigames to offset them. Also, offering more minigames is almost always a good thing, since that means that minigames will repeat less frequently and the game will remain fresh and interesting for longer. You're most likely gonna disagree with some of my ratings for these minigames, and if you do disagree with them, leave a comment letting me know why you think that minigame should be rated higher or lower than it is. I'm relatively confident in my rankings since I play these minigames a lot, but I'm always interested in taking the discussion further. Anyways, the only minigame that I'm omitting from this list is Bumper Ball Maze, which does not appear during normal board play. Without further ado, here are my ratings for all of the minigames. Buried Treasure involves pathing and mashing, which I like, but if the chest spawns closer to you, you just win. Treasure Divers is a really slow, boring coin minigame that takes too long. Hot Babam is fun and tense hot potato, but I don't like that this game just selects a loser instead of being elimination style until one person remains. Musical Mushroom is pretty decent on paper, but it feels a little random since the money doesn't go to whoever hits the chest first, but instead whoever hits the chest and is standing on the mushroom. Crazy Cutter is a decent minigame, but unfortunately it's really easy for everyone to win since you win if you score over 80. It should instead be determined by whoever's most accurate. Facelift is fun, but unfortunately it's too easy since you pretty much just have to drag each of the facial features to the extremes. Great concept for a minigame though. Balloon Burst is a fun timing and pumping minigame. Coin Block Blitz is pretty much just luck, where you hit blocks to get coins. It's a little boring, but fine. Skateboard Scamper is pretty much just a mashing minigame at the end since it's really easy to just jump over the thwomps. Box Mountain Mayhem is a really boring luck minigame. Platform Peril is fun, but I do think that there's a little bit of luck regarding these obstacles. I still think it's pretty decent though. Mushroom Mix-Up is a great platforming King of the Hill minigame that rewards quick reaction and aggressive play, probably my favorite minigame in this game. Grab Bag is a pretty decent minigame that allows you to directly impact your opponent's coin count. However, it's really easy to avoid everyone and never lose any coins. Bumper Balls is a fun concept, but it's really difficult to actually win or lose this one, and almost always ends in a draw. I'm sorry. Tipsy Tourney is a pretty fun puzzle pathing minigame. Bombs Away is like Bumper Balls. Fun idea, but is way too easy to survive. Mario Bandstand is a weirdly unbalanced minigame since some instruments offer more notes and opportunities to perform well than others. Shy Guy Says is a great reaction minigame with a cool aesthetic. Castaways has really finicky controls and involves control stick spinning, which is never fun. Keep Away is a really boring, easy minigame where all players have to work together and all players either win or lose. Co-op minigames are really weird in Mario Party, and they usually amount to a waste of time since everybody either wins or loses. I can almost guarantee that you won't lose this minigame though. Running of the Bulb is a slightly better co-op minigame, but it's still incredibly easy and just feels wrong in the context of a Mario Party game. Hot Rope Jump is a simple, classic reaction minigame, but it's way too easy for everyone to just clear the 20 jump threshold. Hammer Drop is pretty luck-based, depending on if you get thrown coins or not. It's also kind of boring. Slot Car Derby is a good racing minigame where you need to be good about maintaining your speed without spinning out. I like this one. Pipe Maze is incredibly lazy. One person just puts the treasure chest in the pipe and everybody watches. Bash and Cash is absolutely brutal, and the one just loses coins and has no opportunity to gain. I don't understand why this minigame exists when Grab Bag executed this idea better in every way. Bowl Over is the opposite, since the one has nothing to lose and everything to gain. At least this one is more fun to play and is more unique though. Coin Block Bash is really boring, and the three's coins don't tally up, making this feel like a 4-player minigame where one player gets an unfair advantage from the start. Tightrope Treachery is way too easy for the one. You'd have to really try to lose this one. Crane Game is another minigame where only the one can gain, and the other players can only lose. It's really boring for the three too. Piranha's Pursuit is weighted towards the one, provided that they're at least decent at mashing. Requires some well-timed jumps though. Tug of War is a stick rotation minigame. It's terrible. Paddle Battle is an even longer stick rotation minigame. Coin Shower Flower is a Reaganomics minigame that will give the one at least 30 free coins while the three get next to nothing. Bobsled Run is a fun minigame, but it's really easy to box your opponent out, so the mashing at the start matters too much. I still like this one though, and it requires good teamwork. Desert Dash also requires good teamwork coordination. This one is great. Bomb Skip Ball is really lame. If you start out with the bomb, you win. Handcar Havoc is a mashing minigame that requires at least a little bit of additional input to prevent you from falling. Deep Sea Divers involves control stick spinning and is really slow and boring. Memory Match is a really easy matching minigame. Slot Machine sure is slots alright. Shell Game is a really easy tracking minigame. Ghost Guess is a really easy identification minigame. Pedal Power is a stick rotation minigame. It's terrible. Whack-A-Plant is way too easy and provides way too many coins. Ground Pound is insultingly easy. You have to try to lose this minigame. Teetering Towers is also insultingly easy. Knock Block Tower is also too easy. And finally, Limbo Dance is a kind of slow, easy timing minigame. So, that's all of the minigames that you'll encounter while playing a typical board game. The mean of these scores gives us roughly a 3.18, while the median score is 3 and the mode score is 2. Yeah, so this doesn't look too great for Mario Party 1. There are some genuinely great minigames here, like Mushroom Mix-Up and Slot Car Derby, but there are a lot of bad minigames here that really bring down the score overall. The stick spinning minigames are very obvious choices for some of the worst minigames in the series since they physically hurt to play. And there are a lot of the single player minigames that are way too easy and essentially guarantee that players can win free money. Keep in mind though, this game was the first of its kind, so growing pains are kind of an inevitability. With that being said, there's a fair amount of variety here, and there certainly are some standout minigames. There is a minigame side mode in this game as well that you can play with friends called Minigame Stadium, but it's honestly pretty lame and takes too long. I don't really know why anyone would play this over the standard board mode. One reason that I'm so harsh on Mario Party 1 is that it introduces a pretty terrible mechanic, which are one-player minigames. These one-player minigames are really bad for a multiplayer game because everybody else has to sit and watch one player play a minigame, which takes up too much time and usually only inflates the economy. So, one-player games don't just bring the game's pace down, but getting a minigame like Whack-A-Plant can also give a player an insane advantage towards the minigame and coin bonus stars, especially since players can actually lose coins in most minigames. So, sadly, Mario Party 1 does lose some points from me, but to pretend like this game only has bad ideas is disingenuous. One of my favorite ideas that Mario Party 1 has is that you can toggle certain aspects of the boards on and off. Once you buy these items from the shop, you can toggle these different types of blocks on and off at your discretion. These blocks randomly appear and can cause players to roll an 8 through 10, a 1 through 3, gain a certain number of coins while rolling, lose a certain number of coins while rolling, or swap places with an opponent. I'm not too huge on these blocks themselves, since I think they add too much RNG to a game that already emphasizes luck a little too much, but I love that you can turn them on and off in whatever manner you'd like, and you can also turn off Koopa, Boo, and hidden blocks too, which is super cool. Hidden blocks can tend to add an additional element of luck, since they'll randomly appear and either call Koopa, Boo, or Bowser to that player. While I personally wouldn't turn Boo and Koopa off, I really like having the option, and I think that the more customizable Mario Party is, the better. Allowing players to turn certain items off or on is great, and I really hope it gets brought back. I also love how chance time works in this game, since you can actually influence what happens instead of it being completely random. Koopa giving out coins is good on linear boards too. Before we wrap up, I want to give my thoughts on one final aspect of this game. You see, Mario Party is designed to be played with a group of friends, but you and your friends might vary in experience with Mario Party or even with video games in general. And I honestly think that good party games are able to engage not just with avid gamers or fans, but with casual friends and family that are looking to have some fun. So for each of these games, I'll rate them on my patented beginner friendliness meter to help you determine whether this game is a good fit for your friends or family, or if everyone will get bored and want to abandon the game. Mario Party 1 is, again, a bit of a rough start. This game can be incredibly punishing since players can lose coins in minigames and can lose a turn to the poison mushroom. These mechanics can be incredibly frustrating for new players since they can be punished really harshly for a bad roll or for not understanding the minigame. However, the boards in Mario Party 1 are relatively simple, so I believe that most players could get the gist of most of the boards here. The minigames are also simple to a fault, but new players likely won't be too confused by their controls. Personally, I'd give this game 2 stars for new player friendliness. Mario Party 1 relies on a lot of luck, and people who aren't invested in the game will likely get bored or tired of all the one-player minigames and lost coins. However, if you're playing this game with Mario Party newbies, I'd suggest trying out either Yoshi's Tropical Island or Mario's Rainbow Castle. I think that there are enough interesting decisions and moving parts on these boards that will keep players interested, but they're really simple boards that won't leave players too confused. Mario Party 1 is really rough around its edges. Its minigames aren't too great, and the majority of the boards aren't really all that good either, and rely way too much on luck. However, this game certainly has good ideas, and is a good jumping off point for the Mario Party series, and there are some good ideas here that only Mario Party 1 has. Customizing items is cool, and a lot of core mechanics like Boo and bonus stars are great and will be kept for future entries. Mario Party 1 is really held back a lot because it was the first of its kind. When you look at some of the most popular board game boards, it's easy to see where Mario Party took a lot of its linear board inspiration from. Thankfully, we wouldn't need to wait too much longer before we get a sequel. I'll see you next time on Mark's Rec Room to discuss Mario Party 2, arguably the most popular Mario Party game. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.